Hello, and welcome to another fantastical episode of My Dog Will Eat My Face. I'm joined today with that dog who's sitting right on my right leg for some reason. Anyway, no, that's not what I meant to say. Anyway, I'll cut that out later. Uh, yes, welcome to the episode. I know that I have been, needless to say, away for a couple weeks. Sadly, it's not because I was at the beach or doing whatever it is humans do for fun anymore. Uh, None of that kind of stuff. It's been a pretty arduous and gruel battle that I've been dealing with respect to my health and trying to keep myself afloat, I suppose, so to speak. But having said that, I felt it was important at least to give, even if it's a very brief update on what things are turning into, especially since my last podcast was reflecting very negative events. I'll put it lightly. And I am obviously still alive. And at least I think I am. I could be a ghost. Maybe I'm in hell. This is hell. Haha. But no, as far as I know, I'm still alive. And it just seems like, to quote some of my friends in real life, nothing can kill me. But I guess that's not a bad thing. Anyway, uh, so the purpose for touching base today is just to give an overall update as to how things are going and reflect on the mental strain that has come with all of these physical changes. The mind and the body are not two separate things in any way. I forget who once said it, but it reflects a realistic view of oneself in which they said, I am my body. A lot of people tend to delineate between self and their physical self, which is interesting. Isn't that curious? I don't know if that's some result of consciousness itself or what. But as you talk to people, especially when they're going through anything medical, you'll notice that, and you might notice this with yourself. I catch myself doing this often too, actually. You'll notice that when you speak of the events that are happening or what you're going through or what what sort of condition you have. Um, it's uh, it's weird because you do bifurcate that from your body, which is you. I mean, sure, you could lose a toe, you could lose a finger, you could lose a whole limb and still be you. You can theorize, I guess, you could be a brain in a vat, but would that still be you? I don't know. I don't think so. How much of your mind is based on the physical world, the senses that we enjoy, the sense of touch, smell, taste, and those things are integral, I think, to being human, such as the loving touch or a tender touch from another person. That is an enormous part of the human experience. And that is purely tied to a physical feeling. So I don't think as one looks at it that you can really ever separate the self from the body. And then people might not like that because they want to say, well, we have a soul and that's different. Or we have a consciousness, which is at least that part's true. I don't know if I have a soul. Um, I'm completely agnostic on that. I guess I don't know what a soul truly is. Is it a I I don't know what that is. I don't know if anyone could define that clearly. And any definition they provide is lacking any experience with being bereft of a body. That is, I've never heard anyone explain how they feel with respect to their feelings, their consciousness, and their sense of self. I've never had a dead person tell me about that. Maybe some of you have. I'd love to hear about it. But so far, I've only been able to talk about the sense of me and self to other living people, which leads me again down the road of thinking that I am my body, which actually, in a lot of ways, underscores the gravitas of the physical issues that a person can go through, such as I am. If I am my body, I am not in a good place, so to speak, to put it mildly. And that's a bit of a bummer. So I think that's why people also like to bifurcate that. But it's weird, isn't it? I think we all have some kind of weird sense of like, there's me, and then I talk about my body. That's different. And that's weird. That's that kind of, if you stop and think about it, it's kind of creepy. Because if you didn't have your body, uh, all your senses would be gone. Imagine being alive with no senses of any kind. I mean, you'd be. That sounds like a living hell. You can't smell, you can't eat, you can't touch, you can't move, you can't do anything. So I think that it's be a human. It's essentially core that it is tied to these physical attributes we carry, and thus I am my body, and I can't separate me from my body. Anyway, I didn't mean to go down that weird rabbit hole. See, you never know where I'm going to go. I ramble. I'm sorry about that. But let me stop there and at least explain how things are going physically and mentally since my last podcast. Well, I suppose I can start out by withholding the suspense and saying right away it sucked. The last few weeks have more or less sucked there. Uh, Obviously, I'm not in any sense enjoying what I'm going through. And it's definitely gotten far more impactful and uh, limiting than ever before. When I last broadcast a podcast, it was because I had gone into complete kidney failure. Now, that's obviously not changed. I'm absolutely in an end stage of kidney failure as well as an end stage of heart failure, which is really causing the other organs to fail slowly on their own. Even my skin. I know I've talked about that before, that organs slowly kind of wither and don't make it out so well when they're not given the appropriate nutrients and oxygen and blood flow. So, yes, uh, I'm definitely in kidney failure, and it's very shaky. I have been able to. This is going to be weird. I hope this doesn't get censored because I'm talking about going potty. Uh, I have been able to urinate, thankfully, in the last 3 weeks. Um, that is since that last event. I think almost, almost every day. So my kidneys, thankfully, are not totally shot. They're how I described it to someone was it's kind of like an old Yugo puttering down the street, stalling every few minutes, trying to desperately get to the service station as the car revs and goes dead and revs again and goes dead. and keeps stalling out as the car's slowly dying and you limp to the service station. That's sort of how my body is behaving right now. Uh-huh. See, I just did it. My body. See, I told you. Even I do it. Anyway, so that's better than nothing if my kidneys obviously don't function with even some respect over the course of just a couple of days. You're looking at a very limited lifespan of probably those days. You could only live for a few days because you can't filter out all those toxins and everything that's been building up in your body, and your body needs to get out of you. And that would absolutely result in a pretty miserable and uh, imminent mortality. So, by virtue of me still being here today, obviously, I've been able to get some steam still, so to speak, out of my kidneys. I've been able to go to the bathroom a little bit here and there. I've actually been really following my doctor's advice, which has given me the best benefit, to be honest with you. Uh, I've had a very bad habit for a long time of drinking flavored beverages, like tea and coffee and juice, things like that. And with my doctor saying I should drink just plain water because it can osmotically pull the peripheral blood, or not blood, the peripheral fluids outside the vascular system slowly back into the vascular system and deliver it to where it needs to go. And to the kidneys, um, it's worked. So that's the good news. I mean, it's not been great, but it's been able to get some relief and some functioning from myself, and that's good. However, it's also been coupled with what the doctor and nurse originally described to me what death from kidney failure is like. Because I don't recall if I even mentioned this. I flatly asked my doctor, how does a person die from kidney failure? If you were observing it, what would it look like? In other words, what should I expect? And she indicated that generally it is a lengthening of time of somnia, where that is, you're sleeping more and more and longer and longer. You're weaker, you're tired more than ever before, and then it just gets worse and worse until you're just basically alive, but you're doing nothing but sleeping and you're barely conscious. And then, well, you pass away. Doesn't sound too bad, does it? I mean, I could think of worse fates. Golly. Um, but unfortunately, my day to day life has reflected just what she described. I've been spending tons of time sleeping with no energy. And I feel bad about it because I want to play with my dog. I know he's getting bored out of his mind if I'm sleeping all day. But there have been so many times I might get out of bed to get a glass of water or maybe to go to the bathroom and maybe think I should stay up for the day, and I just can't. I just feel exhausted and like I'm falling asleep standing up. I have to get back in the bed and I just go right back to bed. To where now the vast majority of my day is spent sleeping, which again, there's worse fates, but it's following the process that was described to me pretty much verbatim. And to be honest, that's about all I've been doing for 3 weeks or whatever it's been. And it's been very difficult to do even the most basic stuff, paying bills, paying my rent, making sure my dog is fed, and all these things we kind of take for granted have become rather labors of love, I guess. I only say that because I love my little dog and I try to give him the best life that I can. So I try to still play with him. For example, today we played a little bit on the sofa. That's good. I even actually took him outside a little bit. That's great. And he was running out of his favorite snacks. And I was thinking, oh gosh, how we can't run out of these. So what I did was I ordered the snacks. I normally get them just from groceries, from the grocery store. But I ordered them on Amazon for the next day delivery to my place so he would not run out of snacks. That was the most important thing in my mind of all the things I could be doing. It was, oh, I gotta make sure he doesn't run out of the snacks he likes. And thankfully, I got it delivered today without a hitch. Yay! So, the time when I do anything, it's really for um, either him, my dog, or other people that I love in my life. That is pretty much the motivator of everything I do. Being able to be there as best as I can for those who I love. That's my top priority. And that's not a bad priority, I don't think. It's not like I'm in Vegas. Top priority is to put it all on black and then go score some uh, appetizers in an alleyway or something. I don't know. No, yeah, I'm not doing anything crazy in my last days. It's just time with those I love and maximizing that as much as I can. That's truly my highest and maybe only priority. No, not only. I take that back. But it's definitely my highest priority right now. So, apart from the physical aspects of all these changes, obviously it's been taxing on some emotional level, I suppose. I absolutely have not had any moments of fear. I've had a worry, but no fear. And I've had no moments of crying or anything like that. So, I mean, you might imagine someone going through that. They're probably going to be a mess, crying and whatever, miserable. That's not my experience. It could be because took the time to self actualize and introspect for years and made myself at peace with my own mortality in whichever way it may come. I'm sure that helps. But it's also a point of there's no return on it. So if I say my highest priority is being there for and with the ones I love, losing my cool and breaking down, sobbing, or being miserable and depressed and destructive or self destructive, anything like that, would be contrary to that priority, wouldn't it? My loved ones would not want me to be crying and depressed and uh, I don't know, self destructing. I don't know what else to describe it as, but obviously, the people who I care about also care for me, and that being my highest priority, it really bumps those kinds of feelings and episodes if they ever do occur in others to not even rise to any surface level of any kind in my head. I guess I've just not had any of that sort of emotional uh, catastrophe. It's not been swell. I've definitely had better weeks, obviously, but if I were to completely lose it, as I said, it would just run contrary to my highest priority. And that's why I think I innately, without any need for exercise, that is, I'm not having to restrain those emotions. If they come, they come. I don't really care. But they haven't even come to any level with me, if that makes sense. So it's not like I'm here biting my tongue, or keeping it all inside and pushing it in and in and in, or something weird like that. There's no internal battle whatsoever. If they come, they come. They haven't yet. I don't know if they will or not. And if they do, swell. If they don't, swell. I just don't want to, certainly, I just don't want to make any of this worse for my loved ones. And that's really again, my highest priority. And I guess that comes from deeply within me. That is so core to me that I thankfully don't even struggle at this time with that kind of emotional downfall, so to speak. So, my experience might be quite different from a lot of other folks. I'd imagine it would be. But gosh, the thing that saddens me is whenever someone is really sick or really hurt, or they're in some sort of a dire strait, or if they die altogether, I've always thought the greatest victims are going to be the living and those that care for them. And that's just the sad truth of it. And I want to do as much as I can to minimize that. So, for example, I would love to outlive my dog. It, I'd be devastated if he died. I would, oh my God, then I'd be crying, trust me. Again, great, another dog died. Oh my God, then I'd be losing it. Yes. But that's preferable for me to suffer that than him or anyone else, my father, my family. Oh gosh, especially with parents. I mean, for a parent to lose a child is it's not happened to me, but I can only imagine that is the most awful experience a human could go through. It's just so contrary to the appropriate order of things. It I I think it's probably the most devastating event that could ever happen to anyone. That is, again, a parent losing a child. So, yeah, I really want to outlive my father. I don't want him to go through that. So, that's really my big motivation now. I guess that's what's keeping me fighting, is trying to make sure that the people I care about are, as best as they can, be okay. Beyond that, I don't have much time to do anything else because I'm sleeping. But it is what it is. And again, if those emotions come at some point, that's fine. If they don't, that's also fine. There is absolutely no reason for me to try to manipulate that. And I think my highest priority is just so innate deeply in my self. It's just so a priori for me that I don't think I could have any other priority other than trying to minimize any hurt that happens to those who I love. So, it's kind of strange. It's put me in this spot where I am still fighting for life, but I'm not necessarily fighting for me. I'm fighting for them because I love them. I'll be done. Well, with all that said, I think that is where I will leave this week's podcast, or this 3 weeks podcast. I don't know. I've always tried to do one a week, but as things deteriorate, I'll I'll try my best to keep folks in the loop. But we'll see. And if anyone can, I don't know, learn something about themselves or someone else from my testimonials, then that's great. But if they don't, at least I know I've said what I needed to say and analyzed what I needed to analyze for my own mental well being. And in fact, even just producing this podcast today, thinking about these things, did crystallize for me what is my highest priority? What do I want? And that's reassuring. That feels better to know what you're driving at, to know what your priority is. Before this podcast, like this specific one, that like right now, this episode, I didn't know that was my top priority. I didn't know that that was going on in my mind until I had to reflect on it. So even if this just echoes out into the universe and disappears, at least I learned something. And that makes it worth it. Like I keep saying to people, keep a journal. Journal, journal, journal. Every psychiatrist tells you journal, journal, journal. It's just so true. And do it in any venue and way in which is best for you. I chose a podcast. You can draw, you can paint. Maybe it's music. Maybe it's just normal writing. It could be anything. But have an outlet to reflect on yourself and what's going on within you. Because if you don't, it can really be at your peril and very uh, much a disadvantage to you in handling things in life. So I'll say that again for the millionth time. Keep a journal. Self reflect. I don't care how. That's the best advice. That's the only, well, I think the only advice I would probably leave the world with. If I could leave with one thing, journal. Anyway, as I was saying, I am going to leave this podcast at that. You can probably tell from my voice I am indeed a little tired still, but I wanted to get something out there just to be sure that any of my listeners were worried that I had indeed passed away already, which totally could have happened. And I realize with every podcast I make, there is a chance it's the last words of mine recorded. That was not proper English. I apologize. that it's the last recording of my words. There, that's proper grammar. Thankfully, I can still learn to be a grammar fiend or something. I don't know. Anyway, if you want to offer any support to the podcast, to me, I mean, you can always support it through its website on Spotify, or just go to patreon.com/mydogwilleeatmyface. You can message me there. I will respond. Actually, I will. Well, If I'm dead, I'm not sorry. If I'm incapacitated, I'm not sorry. But if I'm able to, if I'm living and blah, 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 yes, I will respond to any and all comments on there. So keep that in mind. But thank you. You're obviously in this podcast now for quite some time, and you've already given me the best thing that I could ask for, which is a venue for me to organize my thoughts and share my experience with others. So, thank you for listening and being there to help me through this. Believe it or not, you are helping me. Isn't that crazy? Never met me, and I've never met you. But you are helping me at least because it gives me a venue to crystallize and organize my introspection and my thoughts. So thanks. I'll try to be in touch as best as I can. No promises. But for now, I must say, auf Wiedersehen.